Several of the administrators at the detention center, I was able to visit and interview them. They describe themselves as former military or as on loan from the military. They have developed a memorandum of understanding with McCord Air Force Base, which is very close by, so that they can use their airfields to deport people. And we were told by one of their supervisors there that they use the runways there, their plans were, but that they fly out, he said, we fly out our Mexicans twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursdays. And so they're like just taking plane loads and dumping people at the border, etc. And we questioned them about the relationship between the military and ICE. They said that there were many reservists who litigate cases for the government. So I think it's important, one thing to think about is how we have this, as I said, quasi-legal system where private corporations and the military are also involved in this system and have considerable control of it. Seattle University Law School issued a report in 2008 that documents numerous human rights violations at the detention center, including violations of due process, arbitrary and indefinite detention, physical and verbal abuse, inadequate medical and mental health care, insufficient food, and the situation there is pretty bad. There have been scores of people who have died in immigrant detention, and those reports are coming out in the New York Times now. When we think about some of the economics, it's very similar to what was described about the prison system. GEO came into the community when they were selling this detention center. They said it would bring jobs to the community. They promised 200 new jobs in the Port of Tacoma. In fact, that shrunk down to 45 jobs. And when you go there, they call the prisoners trustees, and they basically, when they're admitted, they're offered the chance. It's actually a reward system that is given if they behave properly. They can work in the detention center, and they're paid $1 a day to work either in food. So there were only 4 hired employees serving the food. Everybody else were detainees for almost 1,000 prisoners there, and the other groups were working in the laundry. And that was how GEO is making a lot of money. GEO, which gets paid by the federal government or et cetera, over $90 per detainee a day. Yeah.
So I was wondering, like, I heard this and I just want to know, like, what the truth is behind it. I heard that, like, even, like, just get, like, a 5-minute phone card or something costs them, like, $5. Or, like, it takes, like, 5 days of work to even get that.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about that at all?
I don't know about that.
No.
I mean, yeah, if it costs $5, it would take 5 days of work. And it's interesting that prisoners the detainees or prisoners are willing to do that kind of work, but it's because there's nothing else to do. They only get an hour a day where they can go outside if they're sort of, on good behavior. I heard this debate. I'm a little bit close out of time, and maybe we can take questions at the end, but I heard this debate between these 2 guys working there. I kind of heard them talking and was asking them, and one of the guys had an ICE badge, and the other guy had a GEO badge. And I said, oh, which one of you guys makes more money working here? I was just kind of joking with them. And they said, the guy from ICE said, oh, he makes more, he's a private contractor. You've heard about the military contractors. They make a lot more money than the military, the US military forces. So that's another aspect, that they're aware of as workers there. And there are children being held in detention centers. The most egregious place is the T-Don Detention Center in Taylor, Texas. And the one good thing that's come out of the Obama administration, but I think it was really the result of a lot of activist work down in Texas, the work of the ACLU and other groups who were bringing attention to the way they were holding children in this detention center. They said, well, if we're going to hold their parents, it's more humane to keep the children with their parents, but the conditions were terrible. And that this facility was recently shut down by activists and lawyers who had been working very hard. So I just want to say like 3 lessons I think that are important to think about in relation to immigrant detention. One is that the cases that the Arab and Muslim communities are facing, they're ongoing. This man, Sam Al-Khandi, he's been ordered to be deported. He's still in the Northwest Detention Center. His family has gotten citizenship, so he would be, it's the ways in which these policies tear families apart and really destroy them financially. The Hamoui family, they were grocers in Linwood, right north of Seattle, and they lost their business. You know, they lost so much. Families have lost a lot. But one lesson the lawyers talked about is the critical nature of some community support and activism in order to prevail over the unlawful actions of the government and the administration. And I think where this has been successful with other immigrant groups is when there's raids in the community. In our area, it's been Shelton, Bellingham. There's been raids that have rounded up immigrants and taken them into this facility. The more community activism and attention we can use to draw to that is really important. The other is the way the state security apparatus, I think, is working, and maybe, Tara, you might, or Caylor, you might have more information on this, but I started to think about Tacoma, as an area where it's a very militarized landscape. So you have the prison, you have the immigrant detention center, you have Fort Lewis very nearby, you have McCord Air Force Base, you have the port of Tacoma where they're shipping military shipments out to Iraq, Afghanistan, etc. And now you also have conscientious objectors or war resistors being held right there. And I'm wondering if this model of the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex, being all there in one space, we're going to see these interactions more and more between the military, the detentions, etc. Something to think about. But also, the rural idea keeps it outside of the public eye. And then lastly, I think, feminist critique, human rights organizations, community-based groups have long argued for reframing the way we think of national security and rejecting this kind of militarized surveillance, authoritarianism, and arguing for human security as a paradigm, which includes economic, food, health, environmental, personal, community, and political security. And I think this is what we're all here to work on. So thank you.